All right, so we go back to a previous story now. The United Nations World Food Programme warning of this humanitarian catastrophe in the south of Madagascar. And we reported, of course, that the WFP predicting that 1.5 million people are in need of emergency food assistance. Well, to tell us a little bit more about this crisis, we're now joined by Deborah Nguyen, who's the World Food Programme Spokesperson for Southern Africa. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the programme.
Good evening, Peter. Thank you.
All right, so it seems to me that this situation in southern Madagascar in particular has been in the making for some time. Does that suggest that the world hasn't been paying attention and that it's now reached a crisis that may have been averted with interventions earlier?
Yeah, this is correct. The situation is extremely worrying in the south of Madagascar, and the hunger and malnutrition that we are witnessing right now is a result of 3 years of ruined harvest. We have to be aware that the south of Madagascar is highly prone to natural disaster, and especially drought. So every year this region of the country is affected by drought. It means that harvests have been completely wiped out in the past few years. And people now are left without anything to eat, and there's 1.5 million people in the south of Madagascar that are suffering from hunger at the moment.
So what have they been doing? What have they been forced to do to survive?
So they have had to find coping mechanisms that are very harmful. For example, they were forced to eat bugs and cactuses that they find on the side of the road, and they are selling all of their belongings, cooking pans, kitchen utensils, and farm tools. And they also, which is also even more worrying, is that they are taking children out of school in a district that is the most affected, in Ambosari district. We had an assessment last month, and we found out that 3/4 of children were taken out of school so that they could help their parents find some food. And they can barely find enough food to have one meal a day, and they're feeding themselves with raw mangoes because they have nothing else and cannot wait for the mangoes to get ripe. And they're eating fruit cactuses, as I said, and those are not very nutritious, and it is notable that Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world, and already half of children under 5 years old suffer from chronic malnutrition. So this is worsening the malnutrition and the food security in the southern Madagascar, and we are really concerned as the World Food Programme on how we are going to be able to assist them. We are planning to provide food assistance to 900,000 people until June next year, but to be able to do so, we will need $37.5 million for the next 6 months.
The situation in Madagascar has been problematic for a long time, hasn't it? I mean, we know statistically that they already before this crisis had the 10th highest rate of stunting in the world, and so that this drought has really catastrophized an already serious problem.
Indeed, in the whole southern African region, climate change is very real, and we can already see the impact of global warming, with temperatures rising twice as fast as in the rest of the world in this part of the world. And in Madagascar, it's very clear because they are suffering recurrent droughts year after year, and especially during the lean season, between two harvests, people find themselves without any food to eat.
What has the Madagascan government been able to do? I would imagine it sounds as if they have very little resources to help their people, and this is where organizations such as yours have to step in.
We are supporting the government, and we're also working on a longer-term strategy to improve smallholder farmers' livelihoods and to help them become more resilient to climate shocks. And we have them strengthen farmer skills and the ability to access and use productive assets with climate information, for example, financial services, and improving local markets as well.
Talking about longer term, are we looking at perhaps growing crops that are more resistant to drought conditions and I suppose reshaping, re-engineering Madagascar's traditional agricultural sector?
It is definitely one of the solutions that the country is looking at, because currently people mostly grow rice, and rice needs a lot of rain to grow. And we are looking at other crops that need less water to grow, so that it would be more sustainable for the agriculture and for the structure of the country.
I also understand that one of the challenges is, of course, traditional practices where women are not allowed to own land. And again, land is the basis for agriculture.
Yeah, it is a very big issue, and that's why the World Food Programme also works towards empowering women through different projects that we have. For example, Food for Assets, where we teach and train women in agricultural skills, and where most of our beneficiaries are women.
My fear for the children is, malnutrition at developmental stages in your life often can't be reversed, the effects and the consequences thereof. This must be a concern for you.
This is extremely concerning, because it's a whole generation that might suffer the consequences of what's happening now, and will continue suffering the consequences, because malnutrition impairs the development of children, and if they are taken out of schools, it's a whole generation that is being sacrificed at the moment. And that's why we have a school feeding program where we provide school meals to children, and it's an incentive for parents to take them to school where they will receive food, so that parents don't have to worry about that meal for the day. And we provide also take-home rations for the families of those kids. So this is something that is of great concern, of course, because half of children are already suffering from chronic malnutrition. This is something we are fighting really hard.
$37.5 million is what you say that you need. Is there other ways that the world community can assist and help?
So anyone can help by donating through our website, wfp.org. And we are calling, of course, the international communities, member states of the United Nations, who are already supporting us, and we need additional support so that we can help 900,000 people until June next year.
All right, so I keep thinking about the children. I mean, issues like immunization and things like that, is that still ongoing?
We are still providing support at the moment, and we are already reaching 500,000 people with food assistance. But obviously, because this is the lean season that is starting now since November, we need to reach more people in more locations, and the situation is really urgent, because now it's not only the impact of drought that we see, but also of COVID-19, where people who were depending on a daily income with small jobs lost that income and don't have any solution to find sufficient food to survive.
All right, and with poor nutrition and a global pandemic, COVID-19 must also be a factor that's of concern in a hunger crisis.
Indeed, and that's why in poor communities it has been really difficult to be able to provide assistance, because those communities are very isolated, and obviously the isolation conditions were not possible for some of them. So we can see a degradation of the health situation, including of malnutrition and food insecurity.